Thanks everyone for your time today. My name is Curtis Russell. I'm a business development engineer here at Mars Air Systems. And like Jasmine said, today we're going to be talking about the use of air curtains in the food service industry, specifically beyond the kitchen's receiving door. So I think that typically is the most commonly thought of application in food service. I think the goal of today's presentation is to hopefully just make you guys aware of some possible potential other opportunities that you can use air curtains in the food service space and possibly create some more sales. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. Quick overview of the agenda here. So I'll just start with a brief overview of air curtains in the food service industry, kind of like how they started, in that space and where, their uses are moving to today. I'll show you guys a quick video on how they work. Air curtains, it's moving air, so I think a lot of times it's really hard to visualize how they work. So we got a really cool video kind of showing you, giving you a better visual on how they're actually working. Go through a couple common installations and applications. Again, really mainly focusing on applications outside that back receiving door. And then we'll go into some current research and testing we've been doing, some of the new technology that we've been incorporating in our air curtains and what that looks like. And then end the presentation with some optional features we can provide with our air curtains, as well as some resources that is available to you guys if you want more information, need help making a selection, or, figuring out how to quote an air curtain. We'll just run through some brief ways you can get those there. So again, starting out with just a quick overview on air curtains in food service. Really they started out as a way to prevent flies from getting into that back receiving door. So that's probably why it's the most common application. You probably heard the term fly fan still used today. So that's kind of where that stems from, is that initial need to prevent flies from getting into that back receiving door. From there, now in today's world, right, people start incorporating them over the drive-through windows, over the customer entry doors, the service doors, for that same reason, as they kind of saw the benefit there. And then, other kind of benefits stem from that as well. Right now we use them for temperature control, and then just, additional benefits kind of stemmed from that. And that's sort of the evolution of how they started in food service and where they're used today. So, like I said, this is a really cool video. I know it's hard to really visualize what the air curtain's doing. This is just a short video. It's basically a smoke test that we did. So we're just using a fog machine that we blew at like what's kind of mimicking a drive-through window. And really, like I said, just a good example of, you're really just able to see the air curtain working here. So let me just play this for you real quick, give you a brief demo of how these work. So as you can see, air curtain's doing a real good job, right, of stopping that smoke or, dirt, dust, debris, whatever that's supposed to mimic, from getting into that open drive-through window. And that's really essentially the purpose of the air curtain and what we're hoping to accomplish, whether that's debris, fly control, temperature control. That's kind of the idea there. So again, I think the smoke just gives you a good visual of what's actually going on there. So kind of an overview again of how they're being used now. Jumping into some common applications of where we can use these in the food service space. So kind of starting out again, that bread and butter application, right? That back kitchen receiving door. That's probably the most common. That's what you see on the left there. We do have units such as the one you see here that are listed to NSF 37 standards. So a lot of times you guys probably deal with health inspectors that require that over that back door or the customer entrance doors, whatever it might be. And we do have air curtains available if that's what's needed. We also have our standard offerings though as well if you just want an air curtain there and that code isn't necessarily required. So that's kind of the bread and butter. On the right there is kind of something a little bit more unique. So that's just an interior opening. It's kind of a cooler application, cold storage. this one was pretty cool. So it's actually a beer distributor. And I believe it was up in the Northeast near the Boston area. And the problem they were actually having here was, so those boxes you see on the right side of the image there, those are actually just boxes of beer that they were storing in this cooler room. But the problem was when that door was open, the air in that warehouse space, it wasn't conditioned, so they had this hot, humid air that was getting into that cooler room, and it was actually damaging the boxes. Right, the humidity would create moisture on those cardboard boxes, and it was getting to the point where they're actually throwing away product or having to repackage product. So from that side of things, they were losing money, and reached out to us, and we put in an air curtain in this application, and per their facilities manager, we're actually able to reduce the amount of damaged boxes that they had by about 50%. So cut that in half. And again, when you're talking about the amount of savings, right, the amount of labor you're saving on having to do all that, installing an air curtain, which isn't too expensive, you get your ROI back, pretty quick. So I think this is again kind of a unique application, something a little bit out of the box, but we got really good results from, and would encourage you guys to kind of look for similar opportunities as well. Next application, probably the second most common next to that backdoor application, are customer entrances. These are two pretty standard application examples here. So on the left, that's actually one of our low pro series. Standard installation there, right? Installed inside of the building, right above the door. That's typically what we recommend. And again, our low pro unit installed there, that's typically best for temperature control applications. On the right there is it's a grocery store entrance. That one's actually obviously installed on the outside of the door there. That is an option. If for whatever reason you can't install it on the inside of the door, as long as it's an unheated unit and it's covered by some sort of awning, you can do an outdoor installation like you see there. And this one is actually one of our standard models. So the application or the problem we were looking to solve here was more flying insect control. Customer wanted a little bit more airflow, so that's why we went with that next size unit up into that standard model. Kind of in the same category as customer entrances, but we do have architectural options available as well. These are kind of our two flavors here. So on the left is it's one of our Phantom series models. That's one of our Phantom 10 units. So what's really cool about those, first and foremost, it's a recessed installation typically. So it's either up in a soffit or the ceiling. Architects really love this unit because they can't see it. But you still get the benefits of an air curtain, despite that. Could be a good option as well if you simply just don't have space above the door, which in this example, is also the case as well, right? You can't really put an air curtain right above the door. So you can go with something like a Phantom and actually put it up above into the ceiling space. On the right there is, that's one of our Quiet Pro unit being shown there. So really cool thing with the Quiet Pro, it's got more of an architectural look to it, right? It's more of that oval shape. It's an anodized aluminum, so it looks a little bit sleeker. And then, in the name itself, Quiet Pro, it's actually about 25% quieter than comparable units. So, when you're in a situation such as, a restaurant, somewhere where you're going to have a lot of customers or people hanging around in the space, and you want air curtains, installed, but, you don't want all the, potential noise, or, that is one of the biggest complaints with air curtains is noise. And, going with the Quiet Pro unit does help with that, especially in a restaurant setting when you have people talking around and all that. It's almost unnoticeable with the Quiet Pro. So really good option there if you're looking for more of a soundproof option, or something just a little bit quieter, looks a little bit more architectural above the doorways there. Next, we got pass-through windows. So again, another really good opportunity in food service. Couple different options there, right? You got more of like a walk-up service window there on the left, something like a concession stand. Again, we got one of our low pros installed there on the outside, on the exterior, but again, because it's covered and it's an unheated unit, that's okay. especially for concession stands too and drive-through windows, the low pros are probably the best option. You can do fly control or temperature control because those units do come with a variable speed knob on the bottom of them, so you can kind of dial in the airflow out of a unit as needed. And then on the right there, that's more of a standard drive-through window application. I think this was in a cold weather climate somewhere, I believe in the Chicago area, but we actually do have one of our electric heated units there. So really cool thing with the electric heat is, especially when it's a cold day in the winter months, that heated element can kind of prevent that wind chill effect. So whether it's the employee that's serving the customer through that window or the customer reaching in and grabbing his food, if it's really cold outside and you're getting a bunch of air blown on you, that could be pretty uncomfortable. So having that heated element to the air curtain can kind of help temper that a little bit and make it a little bit more comfortable for the people that are underneath the air curtain. And then again, you're still getting the same benefits there, right? Drive-through windows, I know, typically have direct access to the kitchen. So, having the air curtain there, you're still preventing, the flies from getting in, debris, dirt, dust, pathogens from the outside, car exhaust can get in. And, obviously, I think it's just really important to prevent any of that from getting into the kitchen area as, that door's opening and closing all day. Okay, let's talk about cold storage a little bit. So again, really kind of two main applications with cold storage. We got coolers and freezers. So I'll talk a little bit about cooler applications first. The rule of thumb that I like to use is, the bigger temperature difference that you have, the more benefit, or I guess the faster ROI you'll see using an air curtain, right? If there's a bigger temperature difference, that cold air is going to escape a lot faster, and it's going to be a lot more important to make sure that you're keeping all that cold air in as that door is opening and closing. If you got guys taking things in and out pretty frequently. So another really cool thing with these applications is you can actually you can take out the strip curtains if you got those in your cooler. I know strip curtains, they can get really dirty. It's a hazard, right? You can't see through them a lot of times. It becomes kind of cluttery when you're trying to walk in and out, and those strips are kind of hanging there. So using an air curtain in place of that is a little bit cleaner, and it's a little bit more user-friendly for employees or people walking in and out of there. Another cool thing with cold storage applications, so typically we recommend installing them on the warm side of the door, which would be on the outside, obviously. Coolers, you can install them on the inside or the outside, just depending on really what your goals are with the air curtain, or where you just might have room to install it. Good example, I'll touch on this in a little bit here, but you might want to install it on the inside of the cooler if you're looking to possibly use one of our UVC units, which could really help prevent mold and pathogen growth inside the cooler. So if you're kind of focusing more on that, might be a good idea to install it on the inside, or if it's simply just temperature controlled, installing it on the warm side could be better. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit here. The other cold storage option we have are freezer applications. So that's kind of what you see on the right there. Obviously, a little bit larger roll-up style door there. That's actually one of our standard units with electric heat, which might seem a little bit counterintuitive, right, to have an electric heated unit over a freezer door. The idea there, we actually do that a lot of times to really just prevent that ice buildup on the door, condensation buildup on the door, or even on the floor. That is really kind of more where the safety concern might come in. If you got people walking in and out of there, right, could become a slipping hazard. Or, like you see in the image here, if you got forklifts driving in and out, that could obviously become a safety hazard as well. So, and then again, with freezers, we do recommend that only be installed on the warm side. If you install it on the cold side in a freezer, we do typically have issues. So just something to note there with freezer applications. If you're looking to use an air curtain, it's important to just make sure that you're able to install it on the outside of the door. Patio dining, so another pretty cool application. This is actually something I see a little bit more relevant today actually. It's becoming more common, is more these service window patio dining applications. I feel like I see a lot of restaurants, kind of like what you saw in the Quiet Pro example as well, where they either have these big accordion style doors, or they have, something like the roll up doors you see here. And, especially in those summer months, right, they like to have those doors opened up to the outside. It's a little bit more, it's kind of a cooler environment to hang out in, relax, have some food, right? You kind of want it opened up to the outside. It's just a better vibe in general. But obviously the downside of that is you're opening up the inside space to, potential temperature fluctuations, or obviously, again, fly control, probably being the biggest, especially if you're serving food. So I think air curtains work really well in tandem with those style restaurants, because you can kind of still have that open setup, that open seating environment, but you kind of get to prevent those temperature or flying insect control issues from being as noticeable, right? You're kind of adding that second layer of protection there against that. Last example we're going to talk about here is going to be our dishwash units. This is actually, I think, really cool. I think this is an application not a lot of people are aware of, but it's something we've offered for a while, and it's called our Quick Dry series. And again, it's something unique to food service, and I just think there's a lot of benefits, a lot of untapped market with this unit. The idea with our Quick Dry unit is it's essentially one of our it's our air curtain that's installed at the end of a commercial dishwasher. And couple benefits here, right? First and foremost, it's a lot cheaper than installing a drying tunnel. So, obviously you get big upfront savings there. But that aside, I think really the more important benefit is, the fact that you're actually not taking up any more floor space. So whether you have a retrofit job where you've got a really tight kitchen that you're already working with, and you want to install something like this, you can do that without taking up any additional floor space. Maybe you have a drying tunnel, right, already, and something happened with that. Instead of replacing that unit, you can just install one of these, and now you've got more open space that you can put more cooking equipment, or something that's really just going to add more revenue right to the operation, as opposed to having to worry about installing a drying tunnel or something like that. So it's really just condensing the floor space, and it's really just opening up and optimizing the space that's either already there in the kitchen, or just, like I said, just opens up more in general for other things you can add into that space. So really cool opportunities here. I would definitely recommend, for those of you that weren't aware of this unit, looking into this one and potential applications or opportunities with these. I'm going to touch on some research and testing briefly here. This is really focused around our UVC units, so I'm going to come back to that. I know I briefly talked about it in our cold storage applications. We've done a couple experiments with our UVC units, really in cooler applications. The one you see here, this was actually done with a restaurant called Bagel and Slice. We used their one of their cold storage rooms, put in 2 sets of Petri dishes, right? So we put one set in on the bottom there, with our UVC air curtain installed on the inside, but the UV feature was off, left it in there for 7 days. And this was the mold bacterial growth that we saw over that 7 days, just from general use. Took those Petri dishes out and put in a new set, and then used our UV feature. We turned that on the air curtain, and we left it in there for another 7 days. Saw no mold growth, so we actually left it in there for 2 weeks, total of 14 days, and we still saw no mold growth. So the science behind how the UV light in the air curtain is working, we're still kind of getting that all down on paper, but we're seeing a lot of really good empirical results from using a UV light in our air curtain to really just sanitize and clean the space. So from this, kind of developed our second test, I guess, with the UV units. I'm sure none of you guys are selling Petri dishes, so we wanted to do something a little bit more applicable. We actually kind of recreated the cold storage rooms in our factory, and we used strawberries this time. So we did kind of the same thing. Again, air curtain with the UV off, and then air curtain with the UV on. Each test lasted 4 days. And as you can see in these pictures, still got pretty good results. On the left, obviously, is with the UV feature on, pretty much mitigated almost all the mold growth on the strawberries. So really the takeaway here, right, is now we're saying, hey, if we can increase the shelf life of the product or the produce that a customer has in that cold storage room, now you're reducing the amount of pay cycles and you're just getting more out of the produce that you have in there. So there's a dollar savings, right? Not just on the energy side, right? Making sure that cold storage room stays cold, but now we're also getting an energy saving side on that purchasing, increasing the shelf life of the product that you guys have. So really cool applications here. Again, I think just another cool thing to look out for. Couple optional features that we have with our units. First off, we can do 304 stainless for corrosive environments. Our standard is a powder-coated galvanized steel, which actually works really well in corrosive environments for the most part. But if you have a 304 stainless requirement, we can do that. Heated units, touched on that a little bit. We can do electric, steam, hot water, and for our industrial units, we do have indirect fired gas available. We can do wash down construction, if you're in like a food processing plant or something like that. Tamper proofs available. That basically we give you you actually require a proprietary tool to disassemble the unit. So if you're in like a prison or a high school or correctional facility, somewhere where you don't want people tampering with the unit, we do have that available. And then, like I mentioned, our clean air series to kind of help sanitize. So we have UV units. We have units with HEPA filters in them, and then we have our they're called VHP units, which is kind of all three: UVC light, HEPA filters, and then a bipolar ionizer as well to kind of give you the maximum benefits of sanitation, if that's kind of what you're looking for. So last slide here, just some resources available. We do have a really easy to use product selector program on our website. I think you really just need to know your opening height and width and the application that you're looking to install it for, and it'll spit out some options for you. We do have an ROI calculator available, really good for energy savings if you're interested in that. If you need some specifications for our units, those are available on Auto Quotes, Master Spec, and SpecLink. Drawings we have on KCL, we have CAD drawings there. We also have drawings on BIM objects, and we have Revit files available. Those are actually on our website directly. And then quoting, Auto Quotes and Specify is available. We're in those as well. But obviously, if you have something more project specific or a little bit more involved, reach out to your local rep and they can help you. Or if you don't know who to contact, we do have a RFQ form or contact us page on our website, and we can get you in touch with a local rep there. So that's all I have. Again, I appreciate everyone for your time. I'll wait a couple minutes, if there's any questions. Otherwise, for those of you that don't have questions, again, I hope you learned something. And, again, thank you for your time.
Question number 1, are you able to disable the heat on the heated units in the warmer months?
Yes. Yeah. So the heated units come with a thermostat that you can control the heat. So, it's as simple as if you don't want to use it in those summer months, you can just turn that feature off.
Question number 2, for the quick dry dishwasher unit, can Mars share a list of dishwasher models that are compatible with the dryer?
Yeah, so we actually have a quick dry specific series, which is available on our website. You can go there and check it out. And it's really just our low pro and standard units that are they're slightly modified to accommodate those dryer applications, but those are the units that we provide for those applications. They end in a -WW, which is for wear wash, but those are available online, submittals and all that if you wanted to check those out.
Hey, Curtis, this is Stephanie. I think the question was if they could share a list of dishwasher models. That we actually don't have, a list of dishwasher models our air curtains are compatible with, I think is kind of what the question was asking.
Gotcha. Yeah, it would vary. I know there's a bunch of different ones, but we do have brackets available with those units that would, basically it's kind of like a triangle bracket that would allow you to mount the unit, right on top of it. But, obviously depending on whatever model it is, you might need to either create your own bracket or have it, we can maybe fabricate one for you. It really just depends on which one you're looking to use them on.
Yeah, if I could jump in here. You want to go first, Frank?
Go ahead. Whichever.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So this is Frank. Sorry, everyone. No, the quick dry models are compatible with pretty much all flight machines and conveyor systems. So if you have one of those, they're pretty much standardized because the rackings are all standardized. And there are kits available for installation either on the unit or on the wall. So connect with your local rep and we can definitely come do a site analysis and give you a model number. We do have a standard offering for that. So it is available.
Great, thank you. And then I'm going to unmute Delicia's mic. It looks like she had her hand up.
My first question was on service doors. Is it best to install them on the outside of the door if you can? And if so, do you have to have some kind of protection, an awning or something?
Yeah, so we recommend installing them on the inside whenever you can. For whatever reason, if you have to install it on the outside, then yes, you would need some sort of awning or covering. And again, it has to be an unheated unit, and really just as long as it's not directly exposed to the weather elements. That's the main thing there. But standard installation would be on the inside.
Okay, so only do outside if you have to for some reason. Okay, and then my other question was, at what height do you have to use a low pro model?
So it would depend. Typically, we say kind of a standard, for flying insect control applications, that would be 7 feet and under. And then thermal separation, if that's kind of more your focus, it would be up to 8 feet. So it really just more depends on your application.
Okay, so 8 feet or under, you said?
For thermal separation, yeah. Yep.
And then what was it for insects?
Insects, 7 feet for insects.
7 feet.
So 7
okay.
feet under, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a few more questions here. All right, so still in regards to the dishwasher, are the dishwasher curtains heated?
I don't believe so. I'll let Andy or Frank confirm that.
Yeah, they are not heated simply because if you were to put an electric heating coil into a unit that's exposed to a very moist or humid environment, then you're asking for a short circuit. So yeah, for safety reasons, we can't offer a heated version for warewashing applications. I have heard of a customer contacting us about trying to pipe in a hot water heated unit for the same application, simply because you don't have the same risks of short circuiting there. I don't know if that project ever went through, but if you really were desperate for heat, then that is always an option.
Yeah, no, Andy's correct. This is Frank again. Now, the only thing you have to do with you doing unheated models is you have to make sure that the discharge is pointing away from the intake or the leaving side of the dishwasher, because then you will lower the temperature of that dishwasher. So it has to be adjusted to be slightly outward away from the exit of the dishwasher. And then Andy's right. We can put steam or hot water in there. And electric is a little bit tricky. You just have to make sure that it's rated for that area, and that's something you have to discuss with your installer and or your maintenance people.
Do the dishwasher dryers come with UV?
They don't. So I'll let Andy, if you want to go first, but I have an opinion on that, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, you have your the same sort of concerns there, with having a lot of electrical control components there at the front of the unit where it's most exposed, with UV as you would for electric heated air curtains. So, again, not going to say that it's not possible. We don't offer it as a standard option. You again could try to work with your installers to come up with something special in order to protect it from being splashed on, but yeah, generally speaking, we would not recommend that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've ever done it yet. This is Frank, and really the purpose of that is to sanitize the air, and you're better off putting an unheated model there and having a UV on the wall, cycling. If your purpose is to clean the air, that's all we would be doing is cleaning the air. So
Yeah,
I don't think I remember ever seeing that though.
No, but it's a good thought, and I like because I've thought about that too, and that's kind of I have a similar opinion. I think with UV in our units, the main it's really cleaning the air, or it's the particulates that are coming into the unit from the airstream. So if you were looking to maybe kind of help sanitize the dishes themselves, I kind of like Frank said, I think it would be better to have a separate UV light for that, and then just have the standard offering with the unheated unit blowing down to just dry them. So.
Looks like we have time for one more question. The question is, do units come fully set up, ready to install?
It depends on it depends on the size of the unit. So most of the low pros and standards do, but once we get to a certain size, then we ship them really in two pieces. You have like what's called the motor fan assembly, and then the actual housing. And it's just we've seen there's less damage in shipment that way, and so in those applications you do have to install those separate. But it's pretty straightforward both ways, and all that's laid out pretty clearly in our IOMs online too. Thank you everyone for your time too. Appreciate it. Have a good day.